Welcome back to BLOCKTV. I'm Ron Friedman, and it's time for Cryptonomics. This is where we look at the intersection between the global financial sector and the digital asset space. And now, with Brexit looming large on the horizon, just 3 weeks to go, can blockchain provide some relief? It seems like UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson thinks it might. For more on that, I'm joined by BLOCKTV analyst Asher Westrop-Evans. Asher, great to have you here. Boris, blockchain,
right.
Where do the two mix?
Okay, so Ron, I'll start with the quote that I suppose kicked all this off. Now, this is Boris Johnson talking with the European Commissioner, President Jean-Claude Juncker, about some plans for Brexit. And I quote, he says, "We are proposing that all customs processes needed to ensure compliance with UK and EU customs regimes should take place on a decentralised basis, with paperwork conducted electronically as goods move between the two countries and with the small number of physical checks needed conducted at traders' premises or other points in the supply chain."
Right.
Now,
so it didn't say the word blockchain.
Exactly, but there is a key phrase in there, of course, decentralised basis.
Right.
Now, there is but one technology that really encompasses this notion in its entirety, Ron. That is, of course, a blockchain. Perfectly used for logistics and supply. Examples used around the world already. Could be a great boon for Britain and the UK as a whole.
All right, so we know the technology is interesting, but why? Where is this going to help?
Okay, so the whole complex thing comes down to this. I'll try and boil it down as simply as
Please.
possible. So the UK is looking to leave the European Union around October 31st as the current deadline, but the issue of Northern Ireland comes into the mix. So Northern Ireland has had a soft border, an open border as it were, with the Republic of Ireland since the Good Friday Accords back in 1998. They've had that free flow of goods and people across those borders. I've been to that place, you wouldn't even know you'd passed it.
Right.
Suddenly you're in Northern Ireland, it's different yet the same. So they don't want to make that a hard border. There's been violence in the past. All throughout the second half of the 20th century was marred by terrible violence, but in that area they want to keep a soft, open border. But how do they do that when the UK is no longer in the EU? There's potential for different laws, different standards. Exactly. When Ireland is still in the EU and the UK isn't, meaning Northern Ireland isn't, how do they stop that? They have been trying to propose, and the UK has been proposing for a long time, technological solutions.
Okay.
Potentially blockchain that could be used to check goods that got cross the border and make sure that you're getting those customs standards, that you're adhering to the different laws that exist between the two areas, and potentially if there are any tariffs or taxes that need to be paid, that those are getting paid, but without actually having the border be impacted. Physically not having any checks on the border, as that has the potential to cause violence on the island of Ireland, and that is something we want to all avoid.
We have the problem, we have a potential technological solution. We're stuck on politics, as Brexit has been for the last few months.
Right, we're stuck on politics, but particularly, I mean, it's currently they're proposing what's known as the Irish backstop, that Northern Ireland would just sort of stay.
Please expand, yes.
Yeah, stay as part of the EU until a more permanent solution could be worked out. The Northern Irish political parties that are represented in UK Parliament are very unhappy about that, suggesting that that would give a secondary status to Northern Ireland. It would make it still part of the EU. There's a whole lot of political issues surrounding that.
Right.
But blockchain technology does provide the potential to answer this question, resolving those customs issues, allowing Northern Ireland to be beholden to the same laws as the United Kingdom, but also not putting up a hard border. But British politicians, as we heard from that quote from Johnson, and as we've heard from May in the past, Theresa May...
This isn't his original idea.
Exactly. This came from a white paper put out on Brexit by Theresa May's government back when she was still Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, in which she stated similarly, without using the word blockchain, that they could have a sort of technology where goods would pass in a decentralized manner across the border. The decentralized manner as well also being a key point of that trustless system. So the EU wouldn't be required to trust the UK and vice versa. They could make sure that all customs and tariffs are being collected appropriately, all laws adhered to, without having to really trust each other. I think something a lot of governments would agree could be a good way to do things.
Not only in that part of the world and across
certainly in many parts of the world.
And any indication of how the EU, so the recipient of this letter, feels about this type of move?
Again, the word blockchain wasn't formally used. Politicians in the UK and Europe seem afraid, but they seem afraid to use the word blockchain, or maybe they're not willing to use it. Maybe they're skirting around the idea. They're not willing to use it, and it becomes a more important issue, Ron. can they do it in time? I mean, October 31st is just around the corner to set up the sort of blockchain needed. Certainly there are enterprise solutions that exist, put out by a number of different companies around the world and a number of different blockchains in existence. This isn't totally new in that sense, but obviously adhering to it on the level of a sovereign state to be set up in a number of weeks, it seems like they've really let the clock run down on this one, and it's going to be questionable whether they're able to do it in time. But really, realistically, to get the UK out of the EU and yet allow that Northern Irish problem to be solved, it seems like this is a use case supreme, Ron. We're always looking for those use cases for blockchain technology. This one seems done and dusted, like tied away. They just need to actually have the will, the political will, to go ahead and attempt to implement it.
All right, so if politicians aren't saying it, we're going to say it. Blockchain, folks, it does
We've solved Brexit. We've solved Brexit. It's blockchain.
All it needed is some BLOCKTV thought to put on this. Yes, blockchain, obviously an amazing use case. If it works there, we can see it maybe put into use in other places, other conflict zones, or other geographical hostilities. Asher Westrop Evans, thanks very much for breaking that down. Brexit, 3 weeks out. Let's see where we go. Thank you. That was BLOCKTV. Don't go anywhere.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.